morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to this remote meeting of the Planning Committee, which is now open to the press and public on request. It's not practicable for this meeting to be broadcast live. However, a recording of the meeting will be made available as soon as possible after the meeting has concluded. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Please can members refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. And please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. Thank you. Before the meeting, I'd like to welcome Councillor Keith James back onto the committee. I know you've been on this committee some time ago, and we're glad to have you back, Keith. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're glad to have you back, Keith. Before we move on to the agenda, I'd like to say that agenda item 9, which is application 21/P/0324/FUL, has been taken off the agenda. I'll call Richard Lewis in and he'll explain why. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Just to accept my apologies, please, members, for this. There is information that needed to be included in the report and information that's necessary for members to have before they make their decision. We have informed the applicant's agent. We will liaise with them now and bring the application back to you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Right, we'll move on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, attendance and apologies. Do we have any apologies, Geraint?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've got apologies from councillors Ron Burnett, John Haller, Faye Jones and Emma Rapier.
Thank you, Geraint. Right, we go to item 2, which is declarations of interest. Geraint, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they have interest to declare?
No problem, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Ashley.
Okay, it's a bit of a list here today. Personal and non-prejudicial. Item Cumbrian Community Council. Item 5, 6, 7. I think I've got it right. 8 and 9. No, 9's off, so you don't have to declare that. The only one I don't have is Blaenavon.
Okay, cheers. Councillor Bevan.
No, none that I'm aware of, Geraint.
Thank you. Councillor Constance.
None that I'm aware of.
Councillor Crick.
I am a member of the board of Blaenavon, as you know, but it doesn't seem to refer directly to them in those reports that we've got concerning the Llantarnam estates. From what I can see, it seems to be more the private developer.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, it's Polly Ellis from Legal Services here. Perhaps Richard could confirm that none of those applications relating to Llantarnam have been made by Blaenavon or are connected to Blaenavon in any way, just to assist Councillor Crick in making up her mind whether or not she needs to declare an interest.
That would be very helpful. Thank you, Polly.
Yeah, as far as we're aware, none of the applications are connected to Blaenavon. They're not the applicant or the agent on any of them.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Councillor Evans.
None that I'm aware of.
Councillor Gaynor James.
No, none that I'm aware of.
Okay, Councillor Keith James.
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, just to let you know, Councillor James, you're coming through very quiet on my machine. I don't know about other participants, but I don't know whether you're either too far away from your screen or whether there's an issue with the mic. It seemed quite quiet.
I'll come a bit closer if that's better, Geraint.
Hopefully. Councillor Jenkins.
Nothing.
Councillor Janet Jones.
None that I'm aware of.
I'll ask Councillor O'Connell when he arrives into the meeting. So I'll come back to him whichever item we're on, if that's okay, Chair.
Yes, that's fine, thank you.
Yourself, Chair,
Nothing to declare, thank you.
and Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. I need to declare personal non-prejudicial issues for agenda items 5, 6, 7, and 8, as they're in my ward. Most things
Okay, thank you. That's all, Chair.
Thank you, Geraint. Right, agenda item 3, minutes of the Planning Committee from the 11th of May 2021. Geraint, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they agree that the minutes are a true and accurate record of the meeting?
No problem, thank you, Chair. Councillor Ashley,
Agreed.
Councillor Bevan,
Agreed.
Councillor Constance,
Agreed.
Councillor Crick,
Agreed.
Councillor Evans,
Agreed.
Councillor Gaynor James,
Agreed.
Councillor Keith James.
I wasn't a member then, so it's probably not correct to comment on
Yeah.
it.
Fair enough, no problem. Councillor Jenkins,
Agreed.
Councillor Janet Jones,
Agreed.
Councillor O'Connell. Oh, sorry, he's not here yet. Councillor Parish
Agreed.
and Councillor Thomas.
agreed.
Thank you. That's agreed, Chair.
Thank you, Geraint. Right. Agenda item 4, which is an update on planning applications subject to Section 106 agreement. So can I ask Richard Lewis, Head of Planning and Development, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, if you notice on the appendix, there's 4 planning applications, all of which were resolved to be approved by members last year. Normally, they're all subject to Section 106 agreement, and normally, if that's not completed within 6 months, we would bring it back to committee, either for reconsideration or an update. Obviously, because of COVID, there's been very slow progress with these 106 agreements. So we're asking for a further 6 months to agree these 106s. I don't think it'll take that long, but we are just asking for that extension to make sure that we accommodate the COVID period. And then when we have completed the agreements, I would be able to issue those in accordance with the committee recommendation. The second issue is that in February, both Future Wales and Planning Policy Wales were published. They are national policy documents. We need now to make sure that all applications are in conformity with those documents. So as part of this process, under our delegated powers, we will be checking these applications to make sure they do conform before we issue the decisions. And therefore, I'm just asking for delegated powers from members for those 2 matters. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Geraint, have you seen anybody indicate they'd like to ask a question? Because I haven't seen anybody. Would anybody like to ask a question or comment on what Richard said? Or Councillor Ashley?
All I was going to say is nobody's made any comment. Can I move the recommendation, please?
Yes, please, Stuart.
I'll second that then.
Right, so you are moving the recommendation as the report says, Stuart. Right, thank you. Right. Geraint, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they are for, against or abstaining?
No problem, Chair. I've just noticed Councillor O'Connell has joined the meeting, Chair. So once we've done the vote for this, I'll just check any declarations with him, if that's okay.
That is fine, thank you, Geraint.
Okay, so yeah, so starting with Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Bevan.
For.
Councillor Constance.
For.
Councillor Crick.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Gaynor James.
For.
Councillor Keith James.
For.
Councillor Jenkins.
For.
Councillor Janet Jones.
For.
Councillor O'Connell.
Sorry, abstain on this one because I wasn't here for the debate.
No problem. Councillor Parish.
For.
And Councillor Thomas.
4.
That's 11-4 and obviously 1 abstention.
Thank you, Geraint. Right, the committee have authorised the Head of Planning and Development to issue decisions on the planning applications listed in Appendix 1. Thank you. Right, we'll go to agenda item 5. Planning
Chair,
up.
Chair, sorry to cut in. Chair, could I just confirm Councillor O'Connor's interest? Just check whether he needs to declare any.
Yeah, no interest. Thank you.
Okay, cheers. Sorry, Chair.
That's okay, thanks. Agenda item 5, planning application 18/P/0424/RES. Application for reserved matters approval, access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale in respect of 164 dwellings, including roads and infrastructure on land at Llantarnam adjacent to Malthouse Lane, Llantarnam. Right, can I ask Rebecca McAndrew, Principal Planner, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share the presentation.
Thank you.
Right, can people see that now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I can see it, yeah.
It's 2 screens, so it's confusing sometimes. Okay, so this application site forms part of the wider Llantarnam Strategic Action Area, which is allocated for development in the current LDP. Members may recall that outline planning consent with all matters reserved except access was granted in 2015. So this shows the strategic action area and the area that was granted outline planning consent in 2015. If I just run through the context. So this bit here is the site that Redrow was developed for residential use. This bit of the outline application was for employment use, which hasn't come forward yet. This is the village core area where Bron Avenel are currently developing, and in the future, hopefully, we're going to have a village core there. And then the current application site here, which was the land to the east of Newport Road, which we're currently considering. So the current application seeks reserved matters consent for 164 dwellings on the land to the east of Newport Road. This current plan shows the proposed layout. This is a sensitive site. It's located within the Llantarnam Abbey Historic Register. It's close to the boundary of the Llantarnam Conservation Area, so that runs sort of along here. And that's the Abbey grounds.
Rebecca, can I just say, can you go back a sentence, please, because it didn't come across to me. There was sort of interference or something. Okay. I don't know if other members do that.
Okay, I'll go back again. So it's a sensitive site. It's located in the Abbey, Llantarnam Abbey Historic Registered Park. It's close to the Llantarnam Conservation Area boundary in the Abbey grounds, which is along here. There's the Magna Porta Gatehouse, which is the listed gatehouse to the Abbey here, and then also the stone wall which runs along the site is also listed. Given that it's a sensitive site, officers have worked hard to secure a high standard development which respects this historic setting. You'll see that the development includes large areas of public open space. These would include reams, areas of wildflower planting, and this area here is a play area. The public right-of-way running along the east of the site would be retained. In the site, so here along here would be retained. This so negotiated a significant buffer, so there's no development close to the ancient woodland. The development includes a mixture of house types to add variety to the street scene and includes a mixture of good quality materials, render, stone brick,
Rebecca,
imitation chimney.
it's happened again. Just go back a few words.
Back again.
Didn't come out. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. So there'd be a mixture of good quality material. There's render, stone and brick. Some properties would have natural stone roofs. Some would have imitation chimneys. Properties on plots, sort of like this here, would have dual aspects. So you haven't got blank elevations looking out into the street scene. You've got attractive side elevations with things like bay windows. This bit along here is the northern boundary, which faces towards the conservation area in the Abbey grounds, looks out over the public open space. This was seen as quite a critical, important frontage. So I'm going to talk more about that and show you some more details of that on the next slide. The scheme would include a SUD scheme for surface water distribution. The dual carriageway runs along the east of the site, so there'd be an acoustic barrier running along this area here to protect the living future residents of these properties. The scheme would include good pedestrian and cycle links. There's a new through the Abbey wall down here out onto Newport Road.
Sorry, Rebecca, it's happened again. Could you go back, half a sentence?
Okay, I'm sorry. Please tell me this. Pedestrian and cycle links proposed for the development are good. There's a new gate to be formed in the listed wall here to allow access to Llantarnam for pedestrians and bikes, so sort of up towards the greenhouse, pubs, schools, those sorts of facilities. The links here across the road, Newport Road, into the wider development area would be beneficial. There are cycle links down to Pedro Lane to the canal and the National Cycle Route, and also Teacock Lane, I understand, is widely used by pedestrians. If you look at the current layout, it shows the roundabout access off Newport Road into the site. This was approved as part of the outline application. We're currently considering a separate application to alter this to a junction. That application is next on the agenda, so I'll run through that in more detail as part of that application.
Right.
The scheme proposes the blocking up of Malthouse Lane. I'm sure members are familiar that that's quite a dangerous exit from there at the moment with limited visibility. So this lane would be blocked up around this sort of area here so that the farm could still use it for its access, but most vehicles using Malthouse Lane would be rerouted now off that Newport Road and through the site. And the outline consent secured section 106 for the site of 15% affordable housing, that's 25 dwellings, and £1,165,000 worth of highways improvements. That's to the works to the Crown roundabout, which is the roundabout by Burton's Biscuit, and further works to the Woodlands roundabout by Rougemont. So I spoke just now briefly about the northern frontage facing the Llantarnam Abbey grounds and the conservation area. This here is the street scene, the snippet of the street scene of what would face that. So you see the houses would face onto that public open space. There's a variety of house types to make it interesting. These properties include stone and render. You can see the chimneys, slate roofs, and you'll notice that they're quite well spaced out, so sort of we wanted visual permeability through that frontage into the site and from the site down onto the Llantarnam Abbey grounds. And here's just two examples of the sort of housing that that we would expecting at the site. So that would be sort of a render design with the chimneys, and this one here, a stone design. So thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I haven't seen anyone's hand go up. Have you seen anyone, Geraint?
I think we've got two now, Chair. We've got Councillor Dave Thomas, then Councillor Stuart Ashley.
Thank you. Dave, if you'd like to come in first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say, you know, a lot of work has gone into this. Enzo Homes and
We can't hear you, Dave.
sorry, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, just quickly, I wanted to say that I'm very pleased with this. A lot of work has gone into this with Enzo Homes and our officers. So I think it's going to look fantastic. So I'm in support of this.
Thank you, Dave. Stuart?
What are we voting on? I can't see a recommendation on this application. I'm sorry, I've actually looked over it about 3 times so far. When I read it earlier. Where is the recommendation on this application, please? What page?
I'll tell you. We are looking at consent.
Oh, consent. Ah,
yes, consent.
Yeah. That's that. I'm sorry to be sounding thick about it, but most things we have recommendations on it. It's consent for these measures. Okay. Now yes. I get it. That I just understand. We don't normally get these. That's why I asked.
Right. Okay.
The other thing I was going to echo what Dave Thomas said, that you've done a lot of work on this. And it'd be very churlish of me to find any because I remember we rode a coach and horses through it to start with, and obviously you've gone out and done all the work. My only sort of niggling points about things like render and stone, I just hope it matches what's there already, because you know, but knowing the site well, having been walked around there, I noted on my Facebook page that so many years ago I went on an ecological walk around that site, near that site. There's a lot. It's one of the few really good landscapes we've got left around here, and obviously you've done something to make sure that it echoes that by the look of it. So no, good, and I'd like to support it. Can I? Is there anybody else waiting to speak?
Yes, there are.
Okay, no, I'll wait to the end of that.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to bring Richard Lewis in at this point, please.
Yeah, sorry, Joe, just on Councillor Ashley's point about the recommendation, on page 40, there is a recommendation, and normally that would be bold, and that's what would draw your eye to it. It looks as if the boldness has disappeared in the transfer to the agenda. So if you look at just above page 40, it does say it is recommended consent be granted for the reserved matters subject to the conditions listed below. Just wanted to clarify that for members.
Thank you, Richard.
The other thing, Chair, I've never seen so many tans on one application as you've got on this. You've obviously gone to town on it, and that I'm comforted by that, because we made comment in this planning committee before about that. So if there's anybody not, you know, you've done a lot of work on it. All right.
Right. Thank you, Richard. I've got Jason. And then Steve. Jason, would you like to come next?
Yeah, not so much a question as a comment, really. 9 times out of 10, I think I look at these kind of applications with a view to how can I turn them down, because I don't particularly want people building on, you know, the kind of land that this is on with a historic value. But in this case, the developers, I think, have done an exceptional job in mitigating a lot of those concerns, and I think there's lessons to be learned there. For other developers in the area who have not done as well a job in engaging with the likes of Dave Thomas, Alan Slade, etc., and the planning team. So well done to them. Kudos.
Right, thank you, Jason. Steve?
Yeah, I don't know whether I need to bring this up now or for the next item, but I got reservation, particularly with the heritage part of the listed wall. I want to know how long the wall has been there, what's the historical value to Cwmbranedd itself, Can anybody give me any information on that?
Yeah, I think Rebecca will come in on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't tell you offhand. I'd have to double check how long the wall's been there, but it's listed because it's attached to the Magna Porta Lodge to the north. So so it's listed sort of by curtilages because it's attached to that. But I think I'll come on to the more details about the wall in the next section. But the roundabout would require 122 metres of the wall to be removed. But that was previously agreed as part of the outline consent, because the outline consent considered access, so that was considered as part of that. When I come on to the next application, I'll explain about the junction that's now being proposed, which would, I think 47 metres of the wall would need to be removed as part of that, which is significantly less. There's also areas within along Malthouse Lane of part of the wall that would need to come out as well, but I think because it's we've granted outline consent already with that access to be considered as being approved, we've already accepted the principle of losing part of that wall to achieve that access. But I'll talk through the junction option, which I think is a better option for that wall and for the area than the roundabout option. So we'll come on to that next. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, Steve. Right, okay, thank you. Geraint, I haven't seen anyone's hand go up. Have I missed anybody?
Councillor Hugh Bevan, I believe, is waiting to speak, Chair.
Right. Hugh, would you like to come in now?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wanted to echo some of the comments expressed by some of the other committee members. It's very clear that a lot of work has been put into this on both sides, not just the developer, but by the council's officers as well. I would have been echoing the sentiments expressed by Jason O'Connell by having reservations about developments being close to sensitive areas. But I think a lot of work has gone into this to address those particular types of concerns regarding the design, the layout, protections afforded to the ancient woodland by having the buffer zone, etc., and biodiversity mitigation. So overall, I'm in favour of it. However, just one minor point, on page 46 of this report, it states under section 10, it is requested that if an electric substation, is required for this development, consultation is undertaken with the local planning authority to help agree an acceptable location on this sensitive site. Now, I'm sure the majority of members of this committee will recall a previous planning application that was submitted where the siting of an electric substation caused a great deal of concern amongst residents and members of this committee in terms of it being considerable detraction from the site. At the time, the principal planning officer told us that this was an issue that was going to be addressed by Torfaen Council and it was going to be taken up. Now, I note that it says that this is going to be a request, but if we're only asking for this, is it possible that they can not accede to our request regarding the siting of the planning, getting the planning department involved for the siting of this substation? And I wanted to know, as this has come up previously, what progress had been made by the planning officers for Torfaen with regards to these electric substations. Thank you.
Hugh, you were looking at the advisory notes, aren't you?
It's on page 46, Chair.
That's in the advisory notes. I'm going to bring Richard Lewis in now, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have looked into this. As you know, it's with the Newport Road one that caused some problems, and there's been problems like this elsewhere. The problem is that they are permitted development, so Western Power is able to do this without referring to the planning department. They do, on occasions, consult us on provision of these kinds of facilities, and we then offer our comments on that. We've written to Western Power asking for them to do that more regularly, and also we're working with developers. Now, when we get new schemes in, we'll be asking about the energy provision. It's partly to do with Future Wales. This one, obviously, we've been discussing for quite a number of years. We've put it on as an advisory note so that the developer is aware that we would be interested if there was a proposal for a substation, and we're expecting Western Power to be consulting with us if they do propose one on this particular site. There may well not be one on the site, but we're not sure yet. Apart from that, I don't think there's much more that we can do, but Western Power is certainly aware of our feelings on the previous developments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Just a quick supplementary on that. Is there no mechanism that we've got within the planning department of the council to insist on when the application is submitted by the developer, as part of the application, to take into consideration the electric usage requirements of that particular application? Because if that was the case, if we could arrange that, then that would determine whether a new substation would be deemed to be necessary or not at the application stage.
Yeah, shall I answer that, Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Councillor. With applications going forward, because Future Wales contains policies regarding energy use, we would, in future applications, be requiring an energy plan from the developers right at the start of the development. So going forward, we're hoping that that won't be a problem as it has been in the past. This application is obviously nearing the end and has been subject to discussion, which is why we've done it as an advisory note in this particular case.
That's great, Richard. Thank you very much for that update. It's very useful to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard and Hugh. Stuart, do you want to come in?
Oh, I was going to say, can I move this if the discussion's ended?
I don't think there are any other questions. Yes, Stuart, you can move it.
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you. Right, so it's over to you now, Geraint. Could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they are for, against or abstaining?
No problem. Thank you, Chair. Can I start with Councillor Ashley?
For.
Councillor Bevan?
For.
Councillor Constance?
For.
Councillor Crick?
For.
Councillor Evans?
For.
Councillor Gaynor James?
For.
Councillor Keith James?
For.
Councillor Jenkins?
For.
Councillor Jones?
For.
Councillor O'Connell?
For.
Councillor Parish?
For.
And Councillor Thomas?
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So consent has been granted subject to conditions. Thank you. We'll go to agenda item 6, which is planning application 19/P/0681/FUL, and it's construction of a new access, pedestrian footways, reconfiguration of wall, landscaping and associated works at Newport Road, adjacent to Malthouse Lane, Llantarnam, Cwmbran. So I'm asking Rebecca, Principal Planner, to present this report, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share the presentation again. Okay. So we've touched on this briefly as part of the previous application. Roundabout access off Newport Road into Malthouse Lane site and to the Redress site was previously approved as part of the outline consent for the Llantarnam Strategic Action Area. This current application seeks consent for an alternative access in this place. The applicant would now like to construct a 4-armed signal control junction with pedestrian crossing facilities. So if consent is granted for the new signal control junction, the applicant could implement either the roundabout or the junction option, but it is understood that the junction option is the current preferred option. We are satisfied that the junction would be a better option than the roundabout. It would have less of a visual impact on the area. Show you the drawing of it. Here we go. So it requires significantly less land to construct the junction than the roundabout. Roundabout would have taken more land. Less of the listed wall along Newport Road would be removed to form the access into the Maltese Lane site. So as I previously mentioned, the roundabout would have taken 122 metres of the listed wall away, and the junction would only necessitate 47 metres by comparison. The roundabout required significant changes in ground levels to get the angles up to the roundabout within the highway, which has been quite visually imposing in the area, whereas the junction would retain the existing levels along Newport Road. In addition to this, pedestrian crossings would also be more pedestrian friendly than the roundabout option. So you can see here that the junction with the controls, and there's an area of landscaping to form a gateway into the site. The wall would be built slightly round the corner outside the visibility space, and then estate railings would run through the site, and there's a SUD scheme for this as well. Highways officers haven't got any objections to the application, and we're recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I haven't seen any hands go up. Oh, there is no, I can see Steve. Would you like? Yes, Steve, go ahead.
All I wanted to ask, what are we putting in place for the mitigating loss of the historic wall? We know we put in for biodiversity and everything else. Because it's grade 2 listed, what are we putting in to mitigate that loss? Anybody answer that one?
Rebecca, can you answer it, please?
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, the principle of losing part of that wall to form the access was agreed as part of the outline consent. So that's sort of set as it is at the moment. The good thing about this is significantly less of the wall would be lost to achieve that. It's difficult to mitigate. So, you know, if a wall's going to come out, I don't know what you could do alternatively. What we have done is got a sensitive scheme which you would still read so the wall would sort of come round the corner, and then there would be this attractive access into the site, but it's difficult. Whereas with, say, ecology, you would if you, I don't know, taking a tree out, you could plant a tree somewhere else. It isn't as simple as that with historic assets, but we're satisfied, as I said, that the scheme is as sensitive as it can be to the historic environment. Thank you.
Can I come back with a
Yes. Yeah.
You've got historic buildings and everything else around there, plus you've got 106 money. You know, we should be maintaining part of our heritage, which is these listed parts and grade 2 parts walls. There are other things we could be using, you know, to mitigate that loss. That's the point I'm trying to raise.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve. I've got Stuart next on the list.
I realise what you're up to with this, because one of the problems we've got down in my area where we've got roundabouts put in is they're not very friendly if you want to develop active travel schemes, because a roundabout, you know, essentially if you want to put cycling stroke walking routes in, then a roundabout is enormous. So I applaud this in some ways, because there's going to be quite a traffic coming off this, but if we're trying to encourage people to get out of their cars, which we are, and use public transport or and bikes and car, this is the linkage. Was that behind your thinking to get this in there and the developers? Because it does seem it's a much better way, and you seem to have sacrificed a lot less while doing it as well. So I mean, I can see where you're going with this. Is that the thinking behind the whole thing?
I mean, yeah, when we've looked at the benefits of the scheme put forward by the developer, one of the things was that active travel link. So the Redrow scheme secured Section 106 improvements down to the cycle route on the canal, and obviously Teacock Lane's quite well used by pedestrians and cyclists, and obviously linking down to the employment lands further down, the pub down to also. So you know, we see that as a clear benefit of this option. Yeah.
Right, which then leads me to one other thing, because we've had to do retrofit on this. Are you going to make sure that all the access drop curves and etc. are built in already? Because those of us have had to go around building that into our wards would know about this, because it makes sense to have all into new developments like this. I only asked that because that's something those of us that have had to actually put this in. These schemes only work if you've got all the stuff behind it as well. You said about the cycleways and the linkage into Teacock and other schemes there. They all need to link up. Is that linkage all there?
Yeah, Paul, shall I pass to you in terms of the highways requirements?
Drop curbs I'm talking about as well.
Drop curbs.
Yeah, drop curbs, cycleway linkage, pedestrian linkage. It only makes sense as the whole lot goes.
Yeah, I mean, you can see here that that there are provisions for the drop curb crossing. There's the refuge in the middle. So yeah, it has been thought out.
But the estate itself's got drop curves that link into this. That's the important thing, because you go around the piste and look at some places. You've got lovely drop curves put in by developments, and then you find there's no drop curves in the estates. That's the bit I was asking about.
I mean, a lot of the development includes sort of shared surfacing, which would be either doesn't have those traditional curbs in any case. So yeah.
No, I'm just getting onto this because having had to retrofit places, they're 400 quid a places, 400 quid a go at putting a drop curve in.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Bumping up and down on your bike is not good, is it?
Well, it's not just a bike; it's people in wheelchairs and people with limited mobility. We must make sure the stuff is in place. Can I have Paul to talk about linkage as well? Be useful.
I think Richard Lewis wants to come in. I'll bring Richard Lewis in first, please.
Yeah.
No, sorry, Chair. I was advising that Paul comes in just to talk about the highways improvement.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, I was going to call Paul in. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
It's okay. Paul,
you,
is there?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a good improvement at the frontage of this site here. All the site itself will have all drop curbs and shared surfaces that you can actually get out to this junction. The footway linkages then down to the pub, etc., and the village area. There's drop curbs on that section. You go across the road into the other new development on the other side of the road. There's a 3 metre wide shared cycleway footway to take you right all the way along that internal road on the other side of the road, and then that takes you through onto Teacock Lane. So yeah, it's quite good as it stands at the moment. No doubt there will be in the wider area drop curbs which are not in place, but we couldn't unfortunately pick those up as part of this application. In the wider area, I mean very wider area, so in the immediate vicinity, and to get you onto the cycle route linkages is good currently. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. I've got Dave next on my list. Oh, he's back on my screen now. Dave, do you want to come in now?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just want to echo what I said earlier. A lot of time, effort, and planning has gone into this estate, and fully support what Enzo Homes and officers.
Can't hear you very well, Dave.
Sorry, yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better now.
Yeah. Like I was just saying, a lot of time, effort, and planning has gone into this estate by Enzo Homes and our officers, and I fully support it. It's going to be a very impressive estate, and I'm looking forward to seeing it develop.
Thank you, Dave, for that. Hugh, I think you were next on my list.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think something like this highlights the issue that we've got, that we're not able to undertake site visits. And something like this, ideally, we would have loved to have had a site visit by members of the planning committee to assess the impact of taking down part of the listed wall and perhaps understand a bit more why it's required. So that's the first point, really. When are we able to undertake site visits for us to help in determining these sorts of applications? Because if we're not able to undertake the site visits, I'm sure most of us now have had our COVID shots and we could do something in a socially distanced fashion. In the absence of site visits, we are putting greater reliance on the report and on the planning officers, and to an extent as well, the local ward members. And you know, we're very respectful for the local ward councillors' opinions on these things. I'm not sure if I'm missing the point here. There seems to be a debate going on as to whether a larger section of the wall should be removed to put a roundabout in place, which officers are not in favour of, and going for a junction with traffic lights. But that still involves removal of a section of the wall, but a smaller section of the wall. Am I missing the point here? Can we not just rebuild the wall, but further back, set back from where it is now? So that would allow space for the junction. Or is it the case that a section of the wall needs to be removed because basically the proposed new road is going straight through it, and we can't have a wall there because there's going to be a new road going through it? So this is what I'm not quite clear on. And I don't know if Rebecca can go back to maybe the plans and explain to us in a bit more detail why it's necessary to remove this section of the wall, and if we can get a bit more feedback, perhaps from the local ward members as well, because obviously we haven't had a site visit, so we can't assess it for ourselves.
Yeah, Hugh, regarding site visits, I understand what you're saying, but we are in discussions now of starting up site visits in the future. So, you know, that will be something we can do. Now, Richard Lewis has indicated he'd like to come in. I don't know whether you want to come in before Rebecca, Richard.
I will, if I may, Chair. Just to echo what you've just said, it looks as if things are opening up a little bit now, and we are now looking into reviewing whether we can be going on site safely. So going for, can't obviously not on this one now, but going forward, we would like to reintroduce that provision. It's a question of when, and it's a question of making sure we do the relevant health and safety checks on that. But we are actively looking at it. And just in terms of the wall, I'm sure Rebecca will have more to say, but we always knew that that wall would have to come out to provide an access into the site. The roundabout junction and that longer piece of wall has been approved, as Rebecca said, so that can be implemented right now. The new proposal came from the developer. More work was done on that. We are happy with it because it's much less of the wall having to be removed. We did look at whether that wall could be rebuilt going into the site, but we've been working very closely with our conservation colleagues on that, and it was strongly felt that there needed to be an honesty in terms of removing the wall, and the railings going in from there showed that transition into the site, and we're very happy with that. And then the ecologist is happy that the wall does have to be removed, but he has made comments about checking the wall for nesting birds, etc., for maintenance, and that somebody, a conservationist, is on site when that wall is removed, so that they can check that nothing ecologically is being disturbed. So it has been the subject of a long discussion and debate. And as I say, we fully consulted with our conservation officers, and we're very satisfied in terms of that. But perhaps Rebecca can use the plan to explain that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Would you like to come in now, Rebecca?
Okay. You see that now? So yeah, I mean, Richard's covered most points there, that this is, whilst we've always accepted that part of the wall has to come out, this is a much better option because it's substantially less. And the landscape architect and the conservation officer and the ecologist have all been involved in devising the scheme, which we think would be the best option for this site. So yeah, that road has to go in that position, and there's no way of getting away from that. So yeah, there would be a swale, there would be the estate railings, the trees would be.
Rebecca, sorry to interrupt. You haven't shared the screen. We can't see the screen.
Oh, sorry, I'm pointing along and not. Try again.
Right, it's there now, Rebecca.
Good. Okay, so this is the scheme. So you can see here where the wall comes to about here, I think, and then we've got the estate railings going around the corner. We've got a swale going in there. We've got the mature trees, which would be some come out, but some would be retained around there. Landscaping, and we're pretty satisfied that this is the best scheme that we could get for that junction, whilst accepting that some of that wall has to come out to facilitate the development. But as Richard said, we've already accepted that in the past. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Right, I got 3 people. Gaynor, Veronica, then Dave. Gaynor first, please.
Yes, Chair, I just wanted to say I fully supported it, and my hand's been up as well as everybody else's. I just wanted to move it, Chair.
Okay, right, we'll ask for a seconder after everyone's spoken. Veronica?
Thank you, Chair. This is really a request for information as much as anything, I think, following on from the points that Councillor Ashley raised earlier with regard to crossing points. And whilst Paul Wheeldon gave us information about the access around that roundabout and on the main road, there was no reference back to what was actually happening on the estate. And obviously we've agreed the estate plans, and they were originally 5 years ago, but things have moved on in terms of active travel and the need for crossings within an estate. Are we, with plans coming forward for estates now, looking at those sort of areas where safe crossing points should be put in to allow for the mobility, those who have poor mobility, are wheelchair users or mums with young children and pushchairs and so on, or not? I think it's quite important, especially as now with the development of housing plans, where houses have to consider the width of doorways and passageways to allow for easy access for wheelchair users, and looking for really long-term usage by a family. So I'd just really like some information. Where are we going with this? Because it seems so odd and backward looking all the time. We're looking at the active travel plans now, and a major problem really is consideration for those who are wheelchair users and disabled.
Right, thank you. Would you prefer me to bring Paul in, Rebecca? Paul, can you come in and answer that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've got a lot of design guidance out for new estates. So when we look at new estates, we look at active travel, and we look at providing drop curbs and tactile crossing points, etc. on new estates. The issue, I think, is wider in Torfaen and in other authorities as well, in that the highway network is fairly old, and in a lot of places there are no adequate drop curb provision. I know that we've got a small budget every year that we go around looking to try to carry out some minor improvements where we can, put in drop curbs and crossing points, etc. But it is a big task, and on the budget that we've got, it will take a while for us to go through and put a real good system in. I know that Pat Bates, I know you know Pat Bates, and Pat works really hard on getting funding for active travel routes and sustainable routes, and that hopefully will continue. So we, as an authority, we work really hard on trying to get at funding that we can get to improve routes within Torfaen. And we always look on new estates to get the best that we can with drop curb access points and tactile paving points. But I take your point, it needs looking at funding for the borough to really tackle these issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul.
So if I could just come back in, Chair, are you saying, Paul, that because this is a 5-year-old application that we've just been considering, that the dropped curb situation is not going to be in place as it's being built?
No, Chair, no, that's not what I'm saying. That this plan is a new plan. That the plan that Rebecca is indicating, it showed previously, was the new development, which is new, and we will go through that when we look at the section 38 plans, the adoption plans, to ensure that all the internal highways within that development has adequate drop curbs and adequate crossing points. So this development will have all of those crossing points. Also, also the application you're looking at now is for the signal controlled junction, which replaces the roundabout, which is far better because it's got signal controlled pedestrian crossing points. Then that links onto the other side of the road, which is a 3 metre wide cycleway, footway. And on this development as well, the new plan, there is a 3 metre wide footway, cycleway internally on the new development. So yeah, we are looking at this new.
That's very positive. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Councillor.
Right, thank you. Dave, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just a quick question, Chair, if possible. With the section of the wall being taken down, I was just going to ask what was going to happen with the stone. Could the stone, could Enzo Homes do something with the stone? Do we keep the stone on the site somewhere?
Dave, we couldn't really understand some of that. You were in and out. I don't know whether Rebecca heard it.
Yeah, it was just basically, I was saying, with the section of the wall being taken down, is it possible that Enzo Homes could do something with the stone just to retain the stone on the site?
Okay, thanks, Dave. Rebecca, please.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we can look at, maybe through a condition. So asking, for a scheme for the reuse of the stone within the site. Yeah.
Right, thank you. I can't see anyone's hand up. So Gaynor has already moved it. Is there a seconder? Right.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Right, thank you. There's a seconder. So it's over to you now, Geraint. If you would please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they are for, against or abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ashley?
For.
Councillor Bevan?
Especially if we can get the stone retained. For.
Councillor Constance?
For.
Councillor Crick?
For.
Councillor Evans?
Yeah, 4 if the stone can be kept, yeah.
Councillor Gaynor James?
For.
Councillor Keith James,
Or
Councillor Jenkins,
For.
Councillor Jones,
For providing we can use the stonework as other councillors have said.
Councillor O'Connell,
For.
Councillor Parish,
For.
and Councillor Thomas.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So this application has been approved with conditions. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to agenda item 7, planning application 21/P/0021/MOD 106. And it's for the variation of paragraph 4 of schedule 5 of the section 106 agreement for outline planning consent, reference 12/P/00288, dated the 26th of June 2015, by replacing 233 residential units with 164 residential units on land at Malthouse Lane, Llantarnam, Cwmbran. So I'm back to you now, Rebecca, Principal Planner, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so as I explained earlier, there's an outline consent for this area, the Llantarnam strategic area, and the section 106 attached to that outline consent secured £1,165,000 for highways improvements. I explained earlier that they were for works to the Crown roundabout and the Woodlands roundabout. The section 106 required the viability to be reviewed at the time of development of this land based on 233 dwellings, which is the level of development which the previous applicant thought they could achieve at the site. The current application is only for 164 dwellings, which is obviously considerably less. So the current application seeks to amend the original section 106 to remove reference to the 233 dwellings, as it's not possible to achieve a satisfactory scheme for this number of houses on the site because of a number of site constraints and requirements. So we've gone through these as part of our reserved matters application, but as I explained, we wanted a high standard of design on the site. It's a registered park, the conservation areas close by and the listed buildings. We required a good level of public open space on the site to respect the registered park setting. There's a SUD scheme for the site. The ancient woodlands and the buffer for that obviously took up land, and there's gas and water mains infrastructure running through the site with quite wide easements which had to be respected. So taking all this into account, we're satisfied that 233 dwellings cannot be achieved at the site in a reasonable manner, and therefore we're happy for the existing section 106 contribution of 1,165,000 to be received. Incidentally, that would now be indexed, and it would now be £1,319,793. So we're therefore recommended the section 106 is amended as per the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I haven't seen any hands go up. Are there any questions or comments?
Councillor Bevan, Chair.
Oh yes, Councillor Bevan, who do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It all seems very straightforward. I'd like to move the proposal.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah.
Seconded. So right, we're over to you again, Geraint, now, please.
Thank you, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Ashley.
Agree. Accept whichever.
Councillor Bevan.
Agree.
Just say four if you're for it.
Oh, okay, four.
Yeah.
Councillor Constance.
4.
Councillor Crick.
4.
Councillor Evans.
4.
Councillor Gaynor James.
4.
Councillor Keith James,
4.
Councillor Jenkins,
4.
Councillor Jones,
4.
Councillor O'Connell,
4.
Councillor Parish,
4.
and Councillor Thomas.
4.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Yes, unanimous. Thank you. Committee have agreed to a variation to the Section 106 agreement. Thank you. Right. We'll go on now to agenda item 8, planning application 21/P/0212/BAR, and it's for the variation of condition 1 of planning permission 95/P/19832 to allow the number of children within the nursery to be increased from 42 to 62 at Little Darlings, 190 Llantarnam Road, Llantarnam. Now, can I ask Claire Hall, Senior Planner, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Can members all hear me and see the screen, Chair?
I can hear you and see the screen, Claire.
Thank you. Okay, so this is an application to vary a condition on an earlier planning permission that was granted in 1995. A piece of late correspondence for you. The agent to the application, having read the committee report, has submitted effectively a 10-point rebuttal to the report, really, and wants this to be brought to members' attention. So I won't read them all out. They're there on the screen for you. They're 10 points in all, pulling out elements of the report that they agree or disagree with. So I'll just leave you to read those for a couple of seconds. And if you could tell me, Chair, when you're happy for me to move on.
Okay, Claire, thank you. Right, have you all had a chance to read through it?
Okay, to move on.
Yes, please, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the application site. It's an existing property that's been converted to a nursery. Like I said, the permission was granted in 1995. They have 7 parking spaces at the front of the site and an in-out arrangement for dropping off and picking up. There's some photographs of the site. This is the main Llantarnam Road. This is Oakfield Road, and this is a view of the front of the property from Llantarnam Road. So some junction improvements were carried out a few years ago, which Paul will be able to explain more about if members require that. So there's this sort of keep clear turning area directly in front of the application site, and this is the public car park to Oakfield Park and Gardens. Yeah, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Claire. Would members like Paul to come in now at this stage to put his side to it? Yes, Paul, could you come in now, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If you notice from the consultation response and the comments that I made in relation to this application, there's been some complaints from residents regarding the existing situation around this area, and I've actually witnessed them myself on a number of occasions. There's an existing car park there that best way to describe it is a car park that serves the large, it's a large park area there. And our car park now over the last few years has become consistently full. Now I couldn't specifically say who parks in that car park, but it's probably a combination of people. It's probably a combination of people that go to use the park. It could be local residents use it because there are on-street parking restrictions there. and possibly there could be people from the nursery that may use it as well. But all I can say is that that existing car park is full throughout the day. Also, there are terrace properties on Oakfield Road, and we all know what happens at terrace properties is that the frontage of those properties is consistently full of parked vehicles. Now, those vehicles primarily belong to residents, and these residents, because there is a lack of space on street, overspill into the existing car park there. So that suggests to me that there is no spare capacity in this area whatsoever for any additional parking that's required as a consequence of a business coming into the area or an extension of an existing business. I am sympathetic to the need that there is a need for this type of facility, but what to be honest, I've got to look at the traffic and the safety implications. Now, what I've noticed at this particular site is that at times there appear vehicles parked on double yellow lines there. There are vehicles parked over drop curb crossings. There appear vehicles parked around junctions, and this is, to be honest, sometimes is not unusual when you've got a facility such as this in the particular area. But what I believe is that this is increasing the capacity at this place by 50%. Now, if I look at the parking standards tell me that there is sufficient parking space there for staff, but there possibly need to be another space for if you increase the area. Most of the concern for me is the additional people that will be travelling to this site to drop their children off. Now, there'll be a 50% increase capacity, so there definitely will be an increase in people coming to this site to drop their children off and to pick their children up. And I don't think that the highway network around that area can cope with that, safely cope with those additional vehicles. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul, for that. I can see one hand up. Dave?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I think officers have got this spot on from a safety point of view, so I can support this.
Yeah, we can't hear you well, Dave. Can you go nearer to your mic?
Yeah, sorry about that, Chair. It's my internet. It's crap.
Oh,
I think officers have got this spot on from a safety point of view, so I won't be able to support this application.
okay, thanks, Dave. Does anyone else want to come in? I can't see anyone else. If you no more questions, can I ask a member to move a proposal?
A recommendation.
Thank you, Lenny. Seconded?
I'll second it, Chair.
Right, it was being seconded. So, Geraint, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they are for, against, or abstaining? Now, the officer's recommendation is refusal. So, for would be to refuse it. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Bevan.
For refusal.
Councillor Constance.
For.
Councillor Crick.
Are you there, Veronica?
She's left. I've just seen she's not in the meeting at the moment, Chair. She's
okay.
Left or dropped out. So well, I'll see if she's there by the end of the list. If not, we'll have to leave it there. Councillor Evans.
For refusal.
Councillor Gaynor James.
For.
Councillor Keith James.
For.
Councillor Jenkins.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor O'Connell.
For.
Councillor Parish.
For.
And Councillor Thomas.
For.
Thank you. I'll just double check, see if Councillor Crick is still
Yeah,
she's not in the meeting anymore, Chair. So with everybody who is still in the meeting, that's unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you, Geraint. This application has been refused.
You're on mute, Chair.
Right, I'll say that again. Sorry about that. Thank you. This application has been refused. And as you know, application 9 has been deferred, so we'll go on to agenda item 10. Planning application 21/P/0456/HH, and it's a detached garage at Broomfield Cottage, Middle Coed Kai Road, Blaenavon. And can I ask Adam Foot, planner, to present the report?
Hi, thank you, Chair. I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay, great.
Adam.
So this application is being reported to committee because the applicant is a member of staff at Torvine within the Neighbourhood Services Department. The application is for a single detached garage at the property. The garage is proposed to measure 6 meters by 7 meters with a maximum height of 4.32 meters. As you can see, it has a standard design for a garage associated with a residential property. I'll share the proposed block plan. So you can see the garage here in relation to the existing property. There's an existing double garage in place at the property. However, due to the scale restrictions, it's no longer able to be used to accommodate modern sized vehicles. As part of the application, the driveway would be extended to the new structure with all surface water directed towards a soakaway within the garden. This is just an image of the property as existing. And that really is the proposal. The recommendation is to approve. And yeah, that's sort of the crux of it. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Adam. Are there any questions? Yes, I can see Janet.
No questions, Chair. I fully support this application. It's not deterring from the World Heritage Site. It's just replacing like only modernising. It's not going to have any detrimental effect because it's already comes onto the main road. So I would support this application, Chair.
Yeah, absolutely. Just if I could just come back, sorry, I probably should have said, yeah, while it is within the World Heritage Site, it's outside the conservation area. Yeah. Our conservation colleagues have raised no objection to it, and also there's no objection from highways, as it will just be utilising the existing vehicular access.
Right, thank you, Adam. I can't see anyone else wanting to speak on this. Right, if you're ready to vote. Janet, were you making a proposal?
Yes, I will, Chair. I'll propose that this is accepted.
Chair. Right, thank you. It's been proposed and seconded. So, Geraint, could I ask you again to ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they are for, against, or abstaining?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ashley?
For.
Councillor Bevan?
For.
Councillor Constance?
For.
Councillor Crick, I believe, is back in the meeting, so yeah, Councillor Crick.
Your mic is on.
You're still muted, Veronica.
Sorry, this closed down and it's creating a few problems even now. For.
Thank you. Councillor Evans?
For.
Councillor Gaynor James?
For.
Councillor Keith James?
For.
Councillor Jenkins?
For.
Councillor Jones?
For.
Councillor O'Connell?
For.
Councillor Parish?
For.
And Councillor Thomas?
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So this application has been approved with conditions. Thank you. That concludes the agenda for today. I would like to thank you all for your attendance and contributions, and I now close the meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.